Revolutionary Guard, Economic Militarism and Likely Sanctions. Since Trump was elected, evidence conveys that the new government, and some of its allies, is seeking sanctions against the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps. In the latest action on June 27th, a total of 256 members of the European Parliament, out of 751 members, issued a statement naming the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, IRGC, as a really terrorist organization, calling for blacklisting of the IRGC by the European Union, the United Nations, and the United States. The statement further warned the European companies that want to sign economic deals with Iran about the high risk of dealing directly and indirectly with IRGC, which has remarkable presence in the Iranian economy. Although some companies, institutions, and individuals associated with the IRGC have been already listed on the sanctions list, the sanctions on the Revolutionary Guards, in case of implementing, would be a major blow to the Islamic Republic's military structure. In this case, the minor and major parts of this organization will greatly encounter restrictions in order to update, rebuild, and perform financial transactions, as well as to travel and conduct joint military cooperation with other countries. The dimensions of this avalanche are perceptible when we remember the IRGC presence in different arenas from politics to industry, culture, sports, economic, media, judiciary, and so on. To find out the IRGC's cancerous growth in the government and private institutions, we should compare it with the Islamic Republic's army and ask if there is any media that is headed by military officers. Is there a party where its founder is an army officer? Is there any sports clubs where its founders or its members of the board are army directors? Is there any financial monetary foundation launched by the Iranian army? Have you ever heard that the army has its own private ports? Is there any news on the army sending forces, such as Quds, outside the Iranian borders? Is there any army officer being appointed as a mayor, for instance, a governor or a minister? Could one name any of them as an example of being detached to another country as an ambassador? If the answer to all these questions is negative, meanwhile the answer to all is positive of the Revolutionary Guard, then one should not wonder about the quiddity of the Revolutionary Guard organization. One should ask what kind of institution the Revolutionary Guards is not. Isn't it a party? Isn't it media? Isn't it a financial monetary foundation? Isn't it a cultural sports foundation? Could we name any of the 3 judiciary branches which is not under the IRGC influence? As an example, it is enough to recall that Mehdi Karoubi, the former Speaker of Parliament, announced that the Corps had created 60 unauthorized docks in the south of the country, as well as that Ahmadinejad, the former president of Iran, also declared that 167 docks were not under the supervision of state institutions at the end of his presidential period. In addition to all the infiltration of the IRGC, it should also be recalled that Hossein Hamedani, one of the highest commanders of the Guard Corps killed in Syria in September 2015, acknowledged that about 5,000 of the thugs and raptors involved in sword and dagger crimes, and also 45,000 Basij members, were organized to suppress the Green Movement in 2009. In addition, Commander Jafari, the Revolutionary Guard's commander, explicitly stated that the IRGC missions are not limited to military, defense, and security. The Supreme Leader has not given any limitation to the IRGC in carrying out its mission in various aspects of defending the Islamic Revolution, he stressed. Besides, it was also about defending the revolution that in 2005, Commander Zolgadar uncovered the multi-layered strategic plans of the Corps, which eventually led to the victory of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in that year's presidential election. Abu al-Hassan Bani Sadr, the first president of Iran, now in exile, once said that the IRGC now has even more power than legislature, judicature, and executive branches. For example, the Islamic Consultative Assembly has lost its control over the Revolutionary Guards. He correctly said that the IRGC is an authority out of the government, above the government, and ruling the government. The statement of the first president of Iran conveys a dreadful meaning, remembering that Ahmadinejad, another president of Iran who had support of IRGC, once described the IRGC as the smuggling brothers, and Hassan Rouhani, the current president, also describes the IRGC's cancerous growth by saying, when the asset, website, newspaper, news agency, gun, military facilities, and other manifestations of power gathered together in one organization, then Abu Zar and Salman, symbols of purity, would also corrupt. When presidents, from Abu al-Hassan Bani Sadr to Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and Hassan Rouhani, come to such dangerous conclusions, we should believe that all of the danger signals in the Islamic Republic have been turned on about the Revolutionary Guards. But the leader who should pay attention to these symptoms is not paying attention. Therefore, the possible sanctions against the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are not merely against the IRGC organization, but sanctions against Iran. Far more severe sanctions than nuclear sanctions. During the nuclear sanctions, Ayatollah Khomeini choked off a nuclear project to lift the sanctions. In case of the implementation of sanctions against IRGC, what would he give up to stop the sanctions? Would he wash out the entire Revolutionary Guards to dismantle the sanctions? Would he sacrifice the armies who were the most important elements in consolidating his power? Even if he wants to, does the Revolutionary Guard give him such permission? Would the Corps remain silent? If the answer to all these questions is negative, what could be the best way out of the likely sanctions against the Revolutionary Guard, except that the Islamic Revolution leader starts reducing the role of the IRGC to something like the role of Iran's army?